Would you believe that the person you're trying to become is already influencing your decisions right now? Your future self isn't waiting for you to figure things out. They're actually sending you signals right now to help you get your life on track towards your highest timeline. Before you dismiss this as some BS, listen to this. In 2011, researchers at Cornell University were able to show that people could detect and respond to emotional images 3 seconds before the images appeared on their screens, all before their conscious minds had any idea of what was to come. This phenomenon is called presentiment, which occurs when your body responds to future events that haven't even happened yet. So that restless feeling you have, or that sense that something needs to change, what if that's not just dissatisfaction with your life, but a biological response to signals from your future self? Hey friend, I'm Christy, a board-certified nurse practitioner, health coach, and trauma survivor. Welcome to Trauma Free, where I help you change your mind and change your life, just like I did. So let's get into it. Most people tell you to visualize your future self or set better goals, but research reveals something interesting. Your brain interprets your future self as a complete stranger. In a study, participants were told to think about themselves today and in 10 years. When people thought about their current selves, their medial prefrontal cortex lit up with activity. But when they imagined themselves in 10 years, there was no activity in these areas. However, some people were found to have stronger neural connections between their present and future selves. And these individuals made dramatically different choices. They saved 30% more money, exercised 25% more, and reported higher life satisfaction decades later. So the question became, how do you build those neural connections so you can change your behavior and alter your brain's decision-making system? To understand why your brain doesn't recognize your future self, we need to go back 200,000 years. Your ancestors faced a brutal decision, prioritizing immediate survival or plan for a future they may not live to see. Our brains have since evolved to focus on temporal discounting, where we value future rewards less than immediate ones. And this devaluation is why we see a reward 10 years from now processed as only 25% of the same profit today. So when you think about your current self versus your future self, your medial prefrontal cortex that processes information in relation to yourself lights up when you think about the present you, because this region is connected to your emotional centers, your memory networks, and your sense of identity. But when you imagine your future self, that same region goes silent and your temporal parietal junction takes over. And this area is responsible for processing strangers, fictional characters, and people who you've never met. So the weaker this neural connection is, the more likely people are to make decisions that harm their future selves. They may choose immediate gratification and avoid difficult conversations, and even postpone much needed changes because they are choosing between themselves and basically a stranger. But people who strengthen this neural bridge through visualization techniques make better decisions because they have rewired their decision-making abilities. This is why willpower doesn't work. You're fighting millions of years of programming that tells your brain to abandon your future self because they're seen as a stranger. But what if that stranger has been trying to communicate with you all along? Your future self communicates with you in a deeper way than your conscious awareness. They take over your unconscious mind. Researchers have spent decades studying affective forecasting, which is our ability to predict what will make us happy. And we're not that good at it because people consistently overestimate how happy something will make them and underestimate how quickly they'll adapt to new changes. While we can't predict what will make us happy, we're really accurate at detecting what feels wrong. That restlessness, that sense that something's off, that's your unconscious mind processing thousands of microsignals about your direction being misaligned. Your brain actually processes 11 million bits of information per second, but your conscious mind can only handle about 40 because it's running complex pattern recognitions on all of it, and it's calculating the gap between where you are and where your truest values are pulling you. Researchers have proved this through unconscious thought advantage experiments where they gave people complex scenarios where they had to make decisions like choosing apartments, cars, and relationships. Half the group was told to think carefully and rationally. The other half was distracted with puzzles and told to just go with their gut. Surprisingly, the results showed that the people who relied on unconscious processing made better decisions. They also found that the unconscious mind seems to process information that transcends linear time. People would have gut feelings about outcomes that wouldn't manifest for months or years, and they were right at alarming rates that shouldn't even be possible. Neuroscience suggests this is due to your reticular activating system, the brain's filtering mechanism that determines what you consciously notice. It's being programmed by your unconscious. Think about it. How many times have you noticed a car, then suddenly you started seeing it everywhere? The car wasn't suddenly appearing more frequently. Your RAS was finally recognizing it because your unconscious determined it was relevant. Now, apply this to life changes. That random book recommendation or that conversation that sparked something in you, your unconscious was already prepared to receive these signals because it had calculated that they were relevant to your journey. Automaticity reveals that up to 95% of your daily decisions are made unconsciously, based on pattern recognition programs running beneath our awareness. Believe it or not, your future self is working through your own unconscious, creating a feedback loop between who you're becoming and what synchronicities you notice. The arrow of time suggests that our experience of linear time, including the past, present, and future, might be a cognitive illusion created by your consciousness to make sense of our reality. At the quantum level, time doesn't flow forward. It exists what physicists call block time, which are all moments existing simultaneously. This makes you think, what if your future self isn't ahead of you in time, but exists in a parallel quantum state that's already influencing your present? Perspective memory reveals something that shouldn't be possible. When people vividly imagine future scenarios, their brains experience those events as if they're happening now. So the same neuroregions that process actual experiences light up when you imagine future experiences. This is due to presentiment, which is the ability to physiologically respond to future events before they occur. The Global Consciousness Project has been running for over 20 years, using a network of random number generators worldwide to detect large-scale consciousness effects. Their data shows that global events like 9/11, major elections, and natural disasters cause detectable changes in random number patterns, hours or even days before the events occur. Quantum mechanics suggests what if consciousness exists in a state of quantum superposition, experiencing multiple timeline probabilities all together. Research on quantum consciousness proposes that microtubules in neurons operate as quantum computers, processing information at the quantum level, where normal time constraints don't apply. This could explain why your random thoughts about career changes happen right before job opportunities appear, why you think of old friends right before they contact you, or why you feel compelled to take a different route home and avoid an accident. Your restlessness, your intuitive hunches, your sense that something's off and needs to change. What if these aren't emotional states, but information from your future self? Because we may just exist in a feedback loop with our own futures constantly influencing each other across the illusion of linear time. So, how do you actually bridge this gap without losing your mind in the process? Transformation doesn't happen through big decisions, it happens through tiny habits, micro moments of courage that compound based on a pattern most people never learn. Habits succeed when they require less energy than your current resistance level, but typical change strategies do the opposite. They require maximum energy when your resistance is highest, which is like trying to work out for an hour for the first time. Sustainable transformation follows a specific sequence. Start with behaviors so small they require nearly zero motivation. Then let your neural pathways do the rest. These micro moments aren't really about the behavior itself, because every time you choose authenticity over approval, or every time you follow your intuition despite logic, you strengthen the neural connections to your future self. There's clear data indicating that identity-based habits are 3 times more likely to stick over behavior-based habits because they're changing who you are and not just what you do. Keystone habits, which are small behaviors that trigger a ripple effect across different areas of your life by doing certain daily actions for just 5 minutes, can unconsciously influence your eating patterns, productivity, and decision making for the entire day. For instance, people who make their beds every morning are 19% more likely to sleep better that night, even though there's no logical connection. People who meditate for just 5 minutes daily show improved decision making in completely unrelated areas, including finances, career choices, and relationships, because keystone habits improve your brain's default mode network, the neural system that operates when you're not consciously focused and oversees about 95% of your daily decisions. When you stack tiny habits that are aligned with your true identity, they expand over time, reducing the neural energy required for other decision making, preventing decision fatigue that has been shown to increase when relying on willpower alone, that operates like a battery, decreasing throughout the day. But identity aligned micro choices actually restore decision making energy because they reduce internal conflict between who you are and what you're doing. Your future self doesn't need you to make dramatic changes overnight. They need you to make micro shifts that compound over time. Your future self's biggest advantage isn't what they know. It's how their brain processes the exact same reality you're experiencing right now. They've upgraded their perceptual lens, which is how information gets interpreted by their nervous system. For instance, people who believe their abilities can be developed perform dramatically better. So, what's actually happening in the brains of people who process challenges differently? They've mastered emotional regulation. And they don't just think differently, they see a different world. In an untrained brain, when they're faced with stress, information hits your sensory cortex immediately, triggering your amygdala or your threat detection center, which floods your body with stress hormones. Then it reaches your prefrontal cortex for rational analysis, and by then, you're already in survival mode. But in advanced thinking individuals, they have different neural pathways where the same stressful information bypasses the amygdala entirely and goes straight to their anterior cingulate cortex, the brain's conflict monitoring center, where it's processed as data without any emotional interpretation. It's important to note that emotional responses aren't reactions to reality. They're actually predictions about reality based on past situations. This is why two people can experience the exact same event and have completely different emotional responses. Their brains are running different predictive models based on their individual experiences from their past. Most people have 3 to 5 emotional categories: good, bad, stressed, happy, and angry. But people with high emotional granularity recognize dozens of distinct emotional states, like anticipation versus excitement, concern versus worry, and frustration versus irritation. And the more precisely your brain can categorize internal states, the more accurately it can predict appropriate responses to situations. This happens through a process called cognitive reappraisal that involves consciously reinterpreting the meaning of scenarios to change their emotional impact. Your future self isn't a destination you're headed towards. They're a frequency you're tuning into. And that frequency has been communicating with you this entire time. Every moment of opposition you feel is confirmation that you're picking up their signal. Every synchronicity that appears is evidence that you're being directed towards. Research has proved that the brain patterns associated with people's future selves are already present. They are just in dormant neural networks. So transformation is about activating those that already exist. Your future self isn't becoming someone new. They're becoming who you already are beneath the conditioning. Your future self isn't 10 years away. They're one decision away from showing who you already are. Self-actualization is a moment-by-moment choice to honor your authentic responses over your conditioned choice. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, intuition over logic, growth over comfort, you're aligning more towards your future self. But it does require that you act before you feel ready, to move before you have certainty, and to trust the signs before you understand the message. Your future self believes in you completely because they can see the patterns that you can't, the connections that you can't make, and the potential that you can't imagine. They've been you. They know what you're capable of, and they've been sending you the messages since the beginning. The only question left is, are you finally willing to respond? So until next time, stay trauma-free and take care.